Okay guys, so this is gonna be a review tutorial. So this might be a slightly longer video, but I'm gonna be giving you guys 2 days to actually work on this. Okay, so Tuesday and Wednesday. And on Thursday, I will be holding office hours for those of you who have any questions. And then on Friday, I will be giving you a quiz, okay? So for my French immersion students, I'm gonna be uploading your notes separately. So you're gonna receive this blank note with the questions given to you in French. But it's exactly the same structure, so you can just follow along. So for some of you, this might be fairly straightforward, which is why I'm actually gonna be uploading the notes separately on Google Classroom. So for those of you who can just look through my notes, you can do so. Um, and wherever you get stuck, then you can always go back to my video, right? You don't have to watch this whole video. This is only for the students who need step-by-step instructions. So I'm going to fill this out by hand, but I will also be uploading a separate file with the filled in notes like I used to. So for those of you who feel comfortable, you can just go have a look at that directly without having to watch this video. However, it's going to get fairly challenging, like, starting from the second page. So you can try that out. You can just look at the notes without looking at my video. But if you run into issues, then you can always come back here, okay? So let's start. The first question, they are asking me to expand this. So that means I don't have to factor anything, okay? Expand just means that you have to essentially get rid of your brackets and then combine your like terms together, okay? So let's do that. Remember, brackets means multiplication. So let's multiply whatever is on the inside by 2. So I'm going to have to multiply the x by 2, right? So let's distribute the 3 by 2. So let's do that. So if I multiply 2 by x, that becomes 2x. And then when I multiply 2 and 3, that becomes plus 6. Now you have a minus over here on the outside. You will also have to distribute the minus, okay? But just remember that minus is actually minus 1, okay? There's a 1 that you don't see, so you're essentially distributing the minus 1. So what will happen is each term inside your bracket will get multiplied by minus 1. So you're going to get minus 4x, and then minus 1 times minus 3, that's plus 3, okay? And then the final step is to combine your like terms together. So the 2x will combine with minus 4x to give you minus 2x. And then you can also combine your constant terms, right? So the plus 6 will combine with plus 3 to give you plus 9, okay? So again, when we're talking about expanding, right, you don't have to factor. You just simply have to get rid of the brackets by distributing the term on the outside of the bracket, okay? So in a similar fashion, let's do the next question. You know what? If you're watching this video, I'm going to ask you to pause. Try doing this question on your own, and then just unpause the video and verify if we got the same answers. Okay, so maybe do that. So please pause. Okay, I'm going to continue doing this. So again, we have negative 3 on the outside now. So because we have brackets, we have to multiply. So I'm going to distribute this negative 3 to the x and then distribute the negative 3 to the 6. Now here, right, the key difference is we don't have a minus sign anymore. We have a plus sign. Okay, so the plus sign basically means that I have a plus 1 on the outside. So I'm going to have to distribute the 1. But when you multiply anything by 1, it doesn't really change. Okay, so it remains the same thing. So this will just become minus 3x, right, for the left side. Minus 3 times x, that's minus 3x minus 18. And then because I'm multiplying by 1, whatever I have inside the bracket doesn't really change. So I'm just going to get 5x minus 6 back, okay? So just like the previous question, let's combine our like terms. So minus 3x will combine with 5x to give you 2x. And then the minus 18 will combine with minus 6 to give you minus 24, okay? Now let's move on to the next question. So these questions are slightly more challenging, okay? So let's read the question. So the area of the rectangle is given by this algebraic expression, okay? Now they are telling you that the length of this rectangle is 5x. You have to find the width, okay? So how will you do that? This is kind of tricky, but let's just write down the formula, okay? So the formula to find the area of the rectangle is just area is just equals to length times width. So the length is already given to us, okay? So what we have to do is we'll have to rely on factoring, okay? So I'm gonna have to factor this, but they have already done that for me, okay? So um, what I have is I have 5xy outside the bracket, okay? So that's my length. I need to multiply this by my width. That will give me the area. Okay, so how do you find the width? So it's kind of like, think of this 5xy as your GCF, okay? They've already done that for you. Now, all you have to do is you have to ask yourself this question. What do I need to multiply this 5xy by to get 25x squared y cubed? Well, 5 times 5 will give me 25. X times x will give me x squared. And y times y squared will give me y cubed, okay? Then focus on the next term, which is minus 20x cubed y. So again, ask yourself this question. What do I need to multiply this 5xy by to get this? So 5 times minus 4 will give me minus 20. X times x squared will give me x cubed. And the y is already there, so I don't have to add a y, okay? Because if you do add a y, then it will be y times y, which is y squared, but that's not what you have. You only have a y there, okay? So let's just remove this, okay? So now let's focus on the last term. So this one's done, and now the last one is 10xy. So what do I need to multiply, again, this 5xy by to get 10xy? So 5 times 2 will give me 10. The x is already here, right? And the y is already here as well. So you don't have to add any variables. So this guys over here is your width, and this is your length, okay? So they're kind of asking you to factor, but in an indirect way. It's not so obvious, okay? So your length, you can think of this as your GCF. Okay, so your length here is your GCF. And you can find the width by using the technique of factoring, okay? So the second question is kind of similar. They're giving you the area of a square, and they're asking you to find the perimeter, okay? So this is an algebraic expression. So remember, the area of the square is equals to side squared or side times side, okay? So you're gonna have to factor this. Because it's a square, both of them will, like both factors will be exactly the same, okay? So this is kind of tricky. You could go with product sum, right? Because it's a trinomial, product product sum will work. But because it's a square, the best strategy to use over here is actually the perfect square trinomial, okay? So what do you have to do? You have to focus on the first term, right? So take the square root of the first term. So that will give you, so that means the area of the square is equals to, I'm just going to factor this. I'm just going to rewrite this um, in a different way. Okay, so take the square root of 100. That will give me 10. Then you take the square root of x, with x squared, which is x. Okay, so this is inside the brackets. Now, because I have a negative in my second term, that means I'm going to have to put a negative value, right? I'm going to put a negative sign here. And then you have to take the square root of the last term. So your last term over here, let me use a different color, is 1. So square root of 1 is just 1, okay? And then you square this, right? So that's how you factor a perfect square trinomial. And now the last thing that you want to do is to check. Okay, so check, does 10x times minus 1, which is minus 10x, times 2 give you 20x? And the answer is yes. So that means you've done this correctly. So now the area of the square is given by this expression now, okay? So it's 10x minus 1 squared, okay? But squared just means that this is the same as 10x minus 1 times 10x minus 1, okay? So that means one of the sides of your square measures 10x minus 1. This is one side, okay? So I'm actually running out of space. So one side. So how do you find the perimeter? Well, a square has 4 sides, right? So let me just draw this square over here. So you know that one of the sides measures 10x minus 1, right? But because it's a square, they are all the same, okay? So this will also have to be 10x minus 1, and this one as well, and this guy on the left as well, okay? They're all 10x minus 1. So how do you find the perimeter? Well, you can add everything up, right? This plus this plus this plus this. But a better way will just be to multiply 10x minus 1 by 4. Okay, so that's what I'm doing over here. And then you can just distribute the 4. So this becomes 40x minus 4. Okay, so this was a slightly difficult question. So let me just erase this to make this look a little better. Okay, so what did we do? Okay, so we had the area given to us as a trinomial. Okay, first I factored this to get the same expression, um, but this is more useful for me because this kind of looks like the formula which tells me how to calculate the area of a square. Okay, so this tells me that once you factor this way, this tells me that one of my sides measures 10x minus 1. So when you get a square question, right, you could do this by product sum. It will work. But the best way of doing this question is to use the perfect square trinomial method, okay? And that will give you, that will tell you what one of the side measures, okay? And then to find the perimeter, you just have to multiply the side length by 4. Okay, so let's go on to the next question. Okay, here you have the area of a rectangle is 10x squared plus 13x minus 3. So again, to find the area of the rectangle, you have to multiply the length by its width, right? So again, you have a trinomial. If you factor this, you're going to get length times width. Both of them will be an algebraic expression, right? So because this is a trinomial, you will have to rely on product sum So that's the best way to factor this. But before we proceed, always ask yourself, is there a GCF that I can factor here? And it turns out that there isn't. Okay, so let's just do this using product sum. So let me just quickly erase this. Okay, so how does product sum work? So just like in the quiz, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 10 times minus 3, so minus 30, and that add up to 13, right? So because my product is negative, that means one of my numbers has to be negative. Um, so again, you can try 1 and 30, and then 2 and 15. So 1 and 30 will not work. I think 2 and 15 will. Okay, so 2 and 15 gives me plus 30, but because this is negative, one of them has to be negative. And now because my sum is positive, that means the smaller number has to be negative. Okay, so that means the combination is minus 2 and 15. So now let's factor this. So if I factor this, this becomes 10x squared minus 2x plus 15x minus 3. Again, all I did was I replaced this 13x in an intelligent way, okay, with minus 2x and plus 15x. So it's still 13x, but the advantage of doing this is now you can do grouping. Okay, so let's do that. So how does grouping work? Well, you have to focus on the first two terms. So factor your GCF over here. The GCF here is oops, 2x. So when you do that, so ask yourself, what do I need to multiply 2x by to get 10x squared? It's just going to be 5x. And then what do you need to multiply 2x by to get minus 2x? Just minus 1, okay? So once you have the 5x minus 1, for this to work, you should get 5x minus 1 over here. So then ask yourself, what do I need to multiply this 5x by to get 15x? That's going to be plus 3. And then check, does plus 3 times minus 1 give me minus 3? Yes, it does. And then finally, the last step is to look at the whole thing and see what you see in common. So the 5x minus 1 is repeating itself. So that means that's what you have to factor. So once you factor 5x minus 1, that leaves you with 2x plus 3, okay? So this is just 2x plus 3. So you see I factored the area of the rectangle into this. Still the same thing, they're equivalent, but now because I have a product, I can call this the length and I can call this the width. Okay, so that is your answer. Now, it doesn't really matter. So if someone chooses this to be their length, then this will have to be their width. Okay, so that doesn't really matter. Okay, so I'm gonna, I guess, yeah. So it's just a question of preference. Whichever one you want to pick as your length and width, this will work. So I'm just gonna erase this so that we can read the next question. So that means, I don't know. So let's say this in blue over here, this is my length, and this in green is my width, okay? And it could be the other way around. It doesn't really matter. So now in the second question, they're telling you, well, what if um, the x what if x has a value of 10 meters? Um, Calculate the value of the length and width. Okay, so now they're telling me what the value of x is. It's actually 10 meters. So how can I find the value of the length and width? Well, I know that my length, right? So I'm going to be consistent with the colors. So I know that my length is actually equals to 5x minus 1, okay? So this is an algebraic expression because I don't know what x is. But in the second question, they're telling me that x is actually 10. Okay, so I can just replace this x by 10. And then calculate the value. So it's just going to be 5 times 10, which is 50, minus 1. So my length will be 49 meters. Now we can do the same thing with the width. So W is 2x plus 3, right? But I know that the value of x is actually 10, right? So I can just replace that by 10. So it's just going to be 2 times 10 plus 3, which is equals to 23 meters, okay? Again, make sure you're consistent with your units, okay? So meters is important because they are giving you meters over here. So if this was centimeters, then this would also be centimeters, okay? So your units have to be consistent. So let's go on to the next question. I think I'm actually going to be stopping here because I'm just afraid that sometimes my recordings they crash. So I'm going to stop here and make a new one just in case if this crashes. Okay, so I think these questions are not too bad. Maybe um, what you could do is before starting the next video, why don't you try solving these questions on your own? And then you can verify your answers with me, okay? So you don't have to do everything on Tuesday, right? This is for Tuesday and Wednesday. So there's not too much left. So maybe, you know, just space this out. I think we you could stop here for Tuesday and then continue the rest for Wednesday. Again, I don't want you to get overwhelmed, okay? So pace yourself. It depends on how much work you're getting with the other classes too. So try not to overwhelm yourself, okay? So again, just remember that you have 2 days to do all this, okay? And to understand this. And on Thursday, if you have any questions, then I will be holding office hours, okay? So I'm actually going to stop here and then I'm going to make a new recording, okay?